All right, today I wanted to talk about the coronavirus, lung, diseases, anything affecting the lungs, um, and they do use magnesium sulfate as a nebulous with a nebulizer to for what do you call that? Asthma. And so asthma, that's famous for that. Chloride also works, but in general, they use sulfate. And so sulfate and chloride do have a relationship as far as sulfate being on the exterior and chloride being more intracellular. Um, but there is a connection between the magnesium and this kind of respiration and this opening and dilation and bronchodilation. Okay, that's on an active level. Like I always talk about the two types of magnesium in the body, like the magnesium deficiency is the passive level and the active level, where you have or the old, the old deficiency, which is coming from us not having had it in the life cycle um, abundantly, like our ancestors did through the bath culture of history, even going up to our founding fathers and their obsession with the bath culture in America, like this kind of, these regions and these waters, and learning about this connection between magnesium and the human skin. And this reality cannot be overcome with a pill. It doesn't show up in the soft tissue, so we're all walking around deficient for a good 200 years, and it's showing. The degeneration of the species is well underway in these last 200 years. So we can step away from our denial at any point you're ready. So, so this one, I brought this up today because there was a viral video out there of a nurse who was forced to put people on ventilators, and ventilators are not the proper choice for someone who's going through what the COVID symptoms are. They need typically oxygen. It's all hypoxia, the diagnosis, whereas the diagnosis is not, hey, you're hypoxic. Let's take a runner and who's hypoxic, and let's say, hey, let's run a 20K, but with a machine. We'll pierce a hole in your chest, and let's have you run that 20K. We'll be helping you with this machine. It's like, no, it's hypoxic. That's the diagnosis. You got to bring oxygen. Um, you know, Through some other methyl pathway or nitrogen pathway or nitrous oxide or whatever, but you can't overlook the lack of the hypoxic symptoms. And so she, of course, hating to be forced to give this treatment to people and watching them all die, sending them down this painful hallway of death, she just said, "Hey, I can't handle this. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put transdermal magnesium all over them before they, go through this." And they started to have a very significant decrease in death in her sector. And so she was realizing that it was the magnesium that was working, and this became a viral video. And we know well that magnesium is how oxygen offloads and onloads from the red blood cell. Red blood cell carries the oxygen, but it has to be able to offload and onload. And it's able to do that through a certain type of viscosity, a certain type of form that what do you call it? Disco seat has to shape, that shape that has to be there. I think it's called sigmoid. That type of shape has to be there. Otherwise, it's not going to offload properly. And so the delivery is part of the key here. And so magnesium plays a role not only in the structural shape of that sigmoid, but also in the viscosity. So it's playing an active and a passive role, or like a structural, let's say, and a circulatory role. So these two, circulatory, lubricatory, I don't know, that's not a word, but lubrification, yeah, viscosity, nerve, like protection, buffering role, which is allowing for better circulation underneath. And so she figured out a very interesting way to bring the oxygen locally and quickly to the body through another means. Now, that doesn't mean it's bringing oxygen pure like this, but it's doing, it's helping with that same dilation that we were talking about in the lungs but were going through a different channel. And on top of it, I'm sure that if she was doing the whole body, they were getting it on the chest area and everywhere else. So the body's able to suck in some of that and help itself, so to speak. That little kidney is very small. Can you imagine the surface area you can get spraying a bunch of this stuff on your skin? That's a much bigger surface area than the kidney could ever handle. And that's the intelligence of listening to history and our ancestors as they went through the skin to bring magnesium into the body through the bath culture. So we're learning more about how they did it. And they set up their whole culture in a place called Magnesia. So the joke's on us. And I'm not just saying a bunch of cute little paraphrases like they actually did this. They said they created mag water by heating dolomite limestone through copying the volcanic processes of their favorite thermal baths. And so they just copied nature. They were intelligent. So if you want more like this, come check us out at theheartoftradition.com, including the magnesium books and podcasts, etc.